Hey everyone, this is Mary Beth McAndrews from Dread Central, and I am here today with Joe Cornish. You may know him as director of Attack on the Block, but he has also written and developed the new series Lockwood and Co, which is out now on Netflix. Hello, how are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell viewers a little bit about Lockwood and Co, what it is, and yeah, just a little bit about it before we jump in?
Yeah, Lockwood and Co is a new supernatural action adventure series on Netflix. It is set in a world plagued by ghosts, where ghosts can kill you if they touch you. And it has also been discovered that young people can detect these ghosts, sense them, see them, hear them, feel them before adults. As a result, these agencies have been set up by adults that employ young people to combat ghosts. And they do this using swords and salt and iron, because it has also been discovered that these various base elements repel ghosts. And our story revolves around the one agency that is not run by adults. It is run by a young man called Anthony Lockwood, mysterious, charismatic, haunted young man, and his brain box boffin sidekick researcher, George Kareem. And then the young lady who is fleeing an abusive agency, who runs to London to seek her fortune, a very gifted and talented young psychic girl called Lucy Carlyle. And the
Oh
three of
yeah.
them come together to become Lockwood and Co. and get involved in all sorts of scrapes and japes and supernatural hijinks.
Right. I mean, like that, it was my dream job as a kid to work in a supernatural agency. So, but this is based off a series of books, and I wanted to hear
Yeah.
about how you kind of came into knowledge about the books and why you wanted to adapt it into a series.
The books were first sent to me by a friend of mine called Rachel Pryor, who is also a producer I work with a lot. I have a company with Rachel and the director Edgar Wright and the producer Naira Park. We have our own little production company called Complete Fiction. So we're always on the lookout for super cool books. And we came across the first book about 10 years ago and loved it, but it was optioned by a Hollywood studio. They
Mm.
did absolutely nothing with it. I think they developed a bunch of screenplays, but nothing ever got into production.
Oh.
So we all went off and made other movies, and then suddenly there were five books, and they became available again. So we thought, oh, hello, these might make a really good, substance for our material for our first foray into episodic TV. So we snapped them up, and yeah, here we are.
Well, yeah. And so what was it like kind of approaching? Because I feel like a lot of the work that you've done with Hack the Block, it's not for kids, but it's centered like it's like young adult centered around like kids' experiences. And what particularly draws you to depicting and working within these kind of kids' experiences with the horrific versus adults?
Yeah, well, I mean, Attack the Block was a certificate 15 in the UK, so it's kind of aimed at teenagers and up. I made another movie
Yeah.
called The Kid Who Would Be King, which had kids
Yeah.
fighting zombie knights. That was kind of for younger kids and up. And then Lockwood and Co is maybe for a, similar audience to Attack the Block. I mean, it's basically good family viewing. What attracts me to
Yeah.
this material? I don't know. I guess when I was growing up, I really loved to see myself on screen, whether it was in E.T. or The Black Stallion, or when I was older in John Hughes movies, when I was even older than that in like teen slasher movies. I really like to enjoy. I enjoyed when I was younger watching people like me on screen. So I guess that's what I've tried to do, really. And I think I'm also quite immature. But also that if you ever see, like, I started out doing TV comedy when I was in my mid-20s over here in the UK. I had a TV show called the Adam and Joe Show. I was the Joe of Adam and Joe, and we would
Cool.
do like parodies of movies using soft toys and stuff like that. So everything I do has been slightly like juvenile, even from the very beginning.
Like it sounds fun. And obviously you've made some incredibly fun films that are like still resonate, even and with adults too. So I
Well,
mean, I
listen,
feel like it's probably
if
worked
I'm
out.
gonna make fantasy adventure, I kind of would rather see young people in it than like a 36-year-old man wearing spandex. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
because it wasn't like that. When I was a
absolutely.
kid, like a lot of fantasy adventure would have people like me in it. It wouldn't be all like middle-aged comedians like acting goofy. I mean, occasionally it was like Ghostbusters or Willow or like
Oh,
you know,
Willow.
but you know, a lot of those movies actually had kids in them, which was really satisfying.
Yeah. Well, and you directed the first episode of Lockwood and Co, correct?
And the first and the
And the
last,
last.
yeah.
So, what was that like working with this cast of kids for the show?
Well, listen, the actors in Lockwood and Co are in there are around 2021 when we
Oh, they
filmed.
are. I can never. Sometimes I can never tell like who is a
Well, that's
teenager
good, you know.
and who is like an adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so
So,
they're playing a few years younger, but they're pretty
okay.
close to their ages. And, you know, we specifically set out to find actors who looked like they could be convincing teenagers. We
Yeah,
didn't want to do that kind of high school movie thing where they're all 28 but caked in
and very
makeup.
obviously
Yeah,
28.
yeah. um, and so we just saw thousands and thousands of young actors and auditioned like crazy. And we found Ruby Stokes very quickly. She had a supporting role in Bridgerton. She was in a really brilliant British movie called Rocks, and she just did the best audition where we believed that she was psychic. Then we found Ali Haji Heshmati, who plays George. Again, he just walked in, and we thought, okay, there he is. There's the character in the flesh. And then
Hell yeah.
Cameron
So
Chapman,
cool.
who plays Lockwood, we overlooked his audition. We kind of saw his tape at first and we were like, yeah. And then we were really struggling. We couldn't find the actor. So we went back and reviewed all the tapes and then we were like,
Um,
how the heck did we miss this guy? Like we
yeah.
realized he was brilliant and we felt very lucky to have realized our mistake, you know.
Well, and you obviously have an eye for casting because you cast John Boyega in Attack the Block, and he has blown up as an actor. How cool has that been for you to see his trajectory grow after being in that film?
So rewarding, you know. I mean, his success is all his own, but you know, that was what my dream was when I cast that movie, that we would give an opportunity to some young actors who hadn't been in anything before to give them the chance to shine, you know, and John really took that and ran with it, you know.
Amazing. Okay, so I do have to ask about Attack the Block too. Can you tell me
Yeah.
anything about that? Like, you're because is the project still happening? First off,
Yeah, very much so. I mean, John and I are deep in working on the script. You know, for the first one, we did a bunch of research to make sure we could mix the fantasy with really grounded and informed reality. So
yeah,
we're doing the same. We have the storyline, we have all the scenes, we have the characters. Uh, and I'm currently going out into the world talking to people who've had experiences or lives that are similar to the things in the screenplay so that we can, you know, mix the kind of fantastic and the real in a satisfying way.
amazing. I'm so excited to see that. So I'm curious going back, like, what is your personal relationship to the horror genre?
Well, you know, I'm the generation in the UK which, you know, when I was a young teenager, there was no certification on VHS tapes.
Mm-hmm.
VHS tapes were a new phenomena and the
Yeah.
government hadn't classified them yet. So when I was 12, I could go to a corner store and rent Zombie Flesh Eaters, The Exorcist, Friday the 13th, Carrie, and I did. And it freaked me the fuck out, but it was like the most powerful, exciting, thrilling, terrifying experience I'd ever had in my life. And when you're that age as well, I didn't understand how films were made. I
Oh
kind
yeah.
of thought,
I thought they killed actors. I did it
yeah,
as a
yeah.
child,
You
like
think,
thought they
you think
actually killed people in these
it's me
movies.
too, right? It's so confusing. It's like, well, were they just lucky enough to be here when this happened?
This
Because
is a documentary.
surely no one would actually like fake all of this. Like, and
Yeah.
in what way is this entertaining? I mean, it's having this powerful effect on me, but
Yeah.
it's kind of half pleasurable and half like terrible. So I think a lot of people who see horror a bit too early in their life have this weird sort of compulsion to try and recapture that chemical moment in their
Oh
lives.
yes. Oh, as someone who
um,
saw horror at 4, I am definitely in that
wow, what were you
category of
watching
like
it for?
Jaws, an
Wow.
ill-fated babysitting incident with my grandfather who wasn't quite sure what 4-year-olds were supposed to be watching. Didn't
Well,
think
you
Jaws would have
we've
an
got
impact on me.
Spielberg has a lot to answer for. You know, that movie was it PG in the US? It was
It was
certainly, I think,
PG. So that was one of the movie. No, it
yeah,
was because it was before PG-13 was a thing. So it was either
that's
PG or
right.
R. And so it was PG. And
Yeah,
then
and
it
in the
started.
UK,
Yep.
it was certificate A, so that meant that anybody could see it if they were accompanied by an adult.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Oh my
so
God.
loads of us were watching, and that's a gory movie. That's got severed limbs and gushing blood and people being
Well,
chopped in half. And
when they're coming out of the boat, with like when they're looking at the boat and that like bloated corpse comes
yeah,
out of it. I mean, talk about seared into my tiny little brain who did not know what was going on at the
right.
time.
And it's the same with Raiders. Like I remember
Oh
the David
yes.
Cronenberg Scanners being such a sort of outrageous, transgressive movie that we weren't allowed to see because it had exploding heads. And then you go see Raiders of the Lost Ark, and there's somebody's head exploding. So he's sneaking in all this kind of X certificate stuff into PG and family oriented movies. And God bless him for doing that, because man, I love it.
I feel like he really created a couple generations of horror fans because of that too. I mean, it's
Definitely.
wild. Do
Yeah.
you remember the first horror movie you ever saw?
Well, I stayed up very late when I was probably about 7 or 8 to watch a horror double bill on the BBC, and it was a couple of black and white movies, like it was one of those like compendium movies which is the one where they're all on a train and the reveal at the end is that they're in hell and they all tell little short stories. I'd have to do some research to figure out what it was,
I
but
don't know what that is,
they were black
actually.
and white
Hmm.
40s or 50s movies,
Okay.
and they were less frightening than I thought they would be. I didn't realize they would have a story. I thought it was just going to be just
Um,
like an hour and a half of horrible things happening. Do you know what I mean? I didn't think, oh, they've got, it was a surprise that there were characters in a story and they
yeah.
weren't just all sawing each other's heads off in the first 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Joe, this has been so cool to pick your brain and talk about horror movies. I could do this forever, but this has been so great. And everyone, Lockwood and Co. is on Netflix. Please check it out. And I'm excited to hear about updates on Attack the Block 2 whenever that comes. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you, Mary Beth.